When Her Majesty the Queen, who was disabled, saw me, she immediately knelt down. I don't know why. Dr. Sarah. Chen stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the massive crystal towers that reached toward the purple sky. The Zephyrian capital. City was like nothing she had ever seen on Earth. Buildings made of living crystal grew from the ground like giant trees, their surfaces glowing with soft blue and green lights. Flying vehicles moved silently between the towers, following paths that seemed to bend and twist through the air. Sarah adjusted her diplomatic uniform and checked her translation device one more time. She was nervous, but also excited. This was her first time visiting an alien world as part of Earth's diplomatic team. As a xenobiologist, she had studied many alien species from Earth's laboratories, but being here in person was completely different. Dr. Chen called Ambassador Martinez, walking up behind her. The Zephyrians want to meet with you right away. Apparently, Queen Valandra herself wants to see you. Sarah's eyes widened. The Queen? But I thought we were just meeting with lower officials today. I'm not even the head diplomat. I know, Martinez said, looking just as confused as Sarah felt, but their messenger was very clear. The Queen specifically asked for the human xenobiologist. That's you. They walked through the crystal streets where tall, thin aliens moved gracefully around them. The Zephyrians looked almost like humans, but their skin had a slight blue tint, and their eyes were larger and more luminous. Many of them stopped to stare at the humans, whispering to each other in their musical language. Sarah noticed that some Zephyrians moved with the help of mechanical devices. She had read in her briefings that their species sometimes developed genetic conditions that affected their movement, but their advanced technology helped them live normal lives. The royal palace was the largest crystal structure in the city. It rose up like a mountain made of pure light, with waterfalls of glowing liquid flowing down its sides. Guards in silver armor stood at the entrance, their weapons looking more like works of art than tools of war. The humans may enter, one guard said in perfect English, but you must follow our customs. Remove your shoes and wash your hands in the fountain. Sarah and Martinez did as they were told. The water in the fountain felt warm and tingly, and it made their skin glow faintly for a few seconds. The palace, everything was even more beautiful. The walls were transparent crystal that showed moving pictures of Zephyrian history. Sarah saw images of their first cities, their exploration of space, and their great scientific discoveries. She tried not to gawk too much, but it was hard not to be amazed. They walked through long hallways filled with floating lights and the sound of distant music. Other aliens moved through the corridors. Some were Zephyrians, but Sarah also saw members of other species she had studied. There were the tall gray Mindari, with their large heads, and the colorful Velthari, who looked like walking rainbows. The Queen will see you now, announced a Zephyrian official, wearing robes covered in tiny stars. Please remember to bow when she enters, and speak only when spoken to. They were led into a vast chamber with a dome ceiling that showed the real sky above. The floor was made of smooth black stone that reflected everything like a mirror. Around the edges of the room stood dozens of Zephyrian nobles in beautiful clothing that seemed to shift colors as they moved. Sarah felt her heart beating fast. She had never met royalty before, not even human royalty. What if she said the wrong thing? What if she accidentally insulted their culture? Her Majesty, Queen Valandra, of the Eternal Crystal Throne, Keeper of the Sacred Lights, first among the star-touched, the official announced. The great doors at the far end of the chamber opened, and the Queen entered. Queen Valandra was tall and elegant, like all Zephyrians, but she moved slowly with the help of a complex mechanical framework that supported her legs and back. The device was beautiful, made of silver and crystal that matched her silver hair and bright blue skin. Her large eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed both ancient and wise. Sarah bowed deeply as she had been instructed. She could hear the whispers of the court around her, though she couldn't understand the words. But then something unexpected happened. The Queen stopped walking. She stood completely still, staring directly at Sarah. Her glowing eyes grew wider and brighter. The mechanical supports around her legs made small humming sounds as they adjusted to keep her balanced. Sarah slowly lifted her head from her bow, confused by the silence that had fallen over the room. Everyone was staring at the Queen, who continued to stare at Sarah. Then, to everyone's shock, Queen Valandra's legs began to fold beneath her. Her mechanical supports tried to keep her upright, but she was deliberately lowering herself down. The Queen, ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, was kneeling. The entire court gasped. Some of the nobles stepped forward as if to help her, but she raised one hand to stop them. She knelt there on the mirror-black floor, her mechanical supports adjusting to the new position, her eyes never leaving Sarah's face. Sarah felt her face turn red. She looked around in panic, not understanding what was happening. Ambassador Martinez looked just as confused. The Zephyrian. Nobles were whispering urgently to each other, and some looked frightened. "Your Majesty," Sarah said carefully, not sure if she should speak. "Please, you don't need to kneel. I'm just a scientist from Earth." But the Queen remained on her knees, and now Sarah could see that the alien ruler was trembling. Her luminous eyes were filled with what looked like recognition, wonder, and something else that Sarah couldn't identify. "The prophecy," Queen Valandra whispered, her voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "After 3,000 years, the prophecy comes true." Sarah stared at the kneeling Queen, her mind racing with questions. What prophecy? Why was this powerful alien ruler kneeling before a simple human scientist? Why did she feel like her life was about to change forever? The answer to those questions would shake the foundations of everything Sarah thought she knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Queen's words about a prophecy hung in the air, like a strange music that nobody understood. Sarah stood frozen, watching as Queen Valandra slowly rose from her kneeling position. Her mechanical supports hummed softly as they helped lift her back to standing. "Your Majesty," Ambassador Martinez stepped forward carefully. "Perhaps there has been some mistake. Dr. Chen is just a member of our scientific team." Queen Valandra turned her glowing eyes toward the ambassador, but then looked back at Sarah. "No mistake," she said in her musical voice. "I have studied the ancient texts my entire life. I know what I see." She gestured to her court with one graceful hand. "Leave us, all of you. I must speak with the human alone." Zephyrian nobles looked shocked. Some started to protest, but the Queen's expression stopped them. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to file out of the great chamber. Ambassador Martinez looked at Sarah with worry. "It's okay," Sarah whispered to him. "I'll be careful." When the last noble had left and the great doors closed, Queen Valandra walked closer to Sarah. Each step was careful and measured, her mechanical supports adjusting with every movement. "You truly do not know," the Queen said, and it wasn't a question. "Your people sent you here, but they did not tell you about the prophecy." "No, Your Majesty," Sarah replied honestly. "I don't know anything about a prophecy. I'm just here to learn about your people and help with diplomatic relations." The Queen smiled sadly. "That itself proves you are the one. The prophecy says the resilient one would come without knowing their purpose." She paused, studying Sarah's face. "Tell me, human, what do you know of suffering?" Sarah felt surprised by the personal question. Well, everyone suffers sometimes, don't they?" "Yes, but your people are different. I've read the reports from the Galactic Council. I know your history." The Queen began to walk slowly around the chamber, her supports making soft clicking sounds on the mirror floor. "Your species has faced ice ages that should have ended you. Diseases that killed millions. Wars that destroyed your cities. Natural disasters that swallowed entire lands." Sarah nodded. "Yes, Earth's history has been difficult. But here you are," the Queen continued. "Not just surviving, but growing stronger. Other species in the galaxy fear such hardships. They avoid them, build walls against them. But humans, ... humans do something else entirely." The Queen stopped walking and faced Sarah directly. "Tell me about yourself, Dr. Chen. What brought you to study alien life?" Sarah hesitated. She rarely talked about her personal history, especially with strangers. But something about the Queen's manner made her feel safe to share. "When I was 12, our colony ship was damaged in space." Sarah began slowly. We were stuck for 8 months while repairs were made. Food was limited. Air recyclers kept breaking down. Many people got sick, and you? The Queen asked gently. I got very sick too. A fever that lasted for weeks. The doctors said I might not survive. Sarah looked down at her hands. But while I was lying in that medical bay, I started watching the alien bacteria samples through the microscope. Even though I was weak and scared, I became fascinated by how these tiny creatures survived in such harsh conditions. The Queen's eyes grew brighter. You found wonder in your suffering. I suppose I did. That experience made me want to understand life in all its forms. How it adapts, how it survives, how it finds ways to grow even in impossible places. Yes, the Queen whispered. This is what makes your people special. This is why the prophecy speaks of humans. Sarah felt confused again. But what does this have to do with a prophecy? And why did you kneel? The Queen walked to the wall and touched a crystal panel. The transparent wall began to glow, and ancient symbols appeared, floating in the air like golden light. 3,000 years ago, our greatest prophet, Seer Melthara, had a vision during our darkest time. Our empire was young then, and we faced a terrible plague that was destroying not just our bodies, but our spirits. Our people were losing hope, losing the will to create and explore. The symbols in the air rearranged themselves, forming pictures that moved like an ancient movie. The seer spoke of a future time when a great darkness would return, sickness that would spread across the stars, taking away not just life, but the very desire to live. She said that when this darkness came, salvation would arrive from a world of endless trials. Sarah watched the moving pictures. They showed alien worlds going dark, civilizations falling into despair, and people losing their connection to each other and to hope itself. The prophecy described the saviors, the Queen continued. People who transform pain into wisdom, who grow strongest when broken, who find light in the deepest darkness. It said they would come from a young world, a dangerous world that tested them again and again. The pictures changed, showing a blue and green planet that Sarah recognized as Earth. But the most important part of the prophecy, the Queen said, turning back to Sarah, was that the resilient one would carry within them the secret to healing, not just bodies, but souls. They would teach others how to find strength in weakness, how to discover purpose in suffering. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Your Majesty, I'm just a scientist. I study bacteria and alien biology. I don't know how to heal souls, don't you? The Queen asked softly. You turned your childhood illness into a lifelong passion for understanding life. You found beauty in microscopic creatures while you were fighting for your own survival. This is exactly what the prophecy describes. The Queen touched another panel, and new images appeared. These showed other parts of the galaxy, other alien civilizations. The darkness the seer predicted has begun. The Queen said, her voice heavy with sadness. We call it the void sickness. It started 3 years ago in the outer systems. Entire civilizations are losing their will to live, to create, to hope. Sarah stared at the images of empty cities and dark worlds, and you think humans can stop this? I believe the prophecy, and I believe you are the first sign that the time of healing has come. The Queen smiled at Sarah, but there was worry in her glowing eyes. The question is, are you ready to learn what your people can truly do? Sarah looked at the ancient symbols still floating in the air, then back at the Queen who had knelt before her. Everything felt too big, too important. But deep inside, she felt something stirring. The same curiosity that had kept her watching bacteria while she was sick as a child. Tell me more, she said. Tell me everything. Queen Valandra led Sarah to a smaller chamber deep within the Crystal Palace. The walls here were covered with star maps that moved and shifted, showing the current state of the galaxy. Red lights blinked in many areas like warning signals. On a broken machine. This is our situation room, the Queen explained, her mechanical supports humming as she moved. Here, we track the spread of the void sickness across known space. Sarah stared at the maps. There were so many red lights. How many worlds are affected? 47 star systems so far, the Queen replied sadly. And the number grows every month. A Zephyrian scientist entered the room. He was older than the Queen, with silver skin and tired-looking eyes. He bowed quickly to the Queen, then looked at Sarah with curiosity. "Dr. Chen, this is Kethfer, our chief medical researcher," the Queen said. "He has been studying the void sickness for 3 years. Kethfer, please show our guest what we have learned." Kethfer moved to a control panel and touched several crystal buttons. The star map changed, focusing on one particular system. "It began here," he said, pointing to a cluster of planets. "The Mindari were the first to fall. They are a telepathic species. They can speak to each other with their minds across great distances." Sarah nodded. She had read about the Mindari. In her studies, the sickness took away their telepathy first, Kethfer continued. Then it took away their ability to connect with each other emotionally. Within 6 months, their entire civilization became ... empty. They stopped talking, stopped working together, stopped caring about anything. The map shifted to show another system. Next were the Velthari. They're artists. They are creators of the most beautiful music and sculptures in the galaxy. Sickness made them unable to create. They lost all sense of beauty and wonder. Sarah felt a chill. What happened to them? They still exist, the Queen said quietly. But they just survive. They eat, they sleep, they perform basic functions. But they have no joy, no purpose, no hope. The map moved again. The Crixoni were warriors, proud and strong. The sickness took away their courage and their will to fight. Now they hide in their cities, afraid of everything. Sarah watched as system after system appeared on the map, each one showing the same pattern. It targets what makes each species special, she realized. Exactly, Kethfer said. The void sickness finds the core strength of each civilization and destroys it. It leaves the body alive, but kills the spirit. Queen Valandra moved closer to Sarah, and now it has reached us. Sarah looked at the Queen's mechanical supports with new understanding. Your Majesty. ... When did you first need those devices? The Queen was quiet for a long moment. I was born healthy, she finally said, strong and quick like all young Zephyrians. I could run and dance and climb the highest crystal towers. When did that change? Sarah asked gently. 3 years ago, the Queen replied. I was the first of my people to show symptoms. At first, we thought it was a genetic condition that had appeared suddenly. Our doctors built these supports to help me move. Kethfer touched more controls and a medical scan appeared in the air. It showed the Queen's body, with areas of darkness spreading through her nervous system. The void sickness attacks our innovation, Kethfer explained. Zephyrians are natural builders and inventors. We create new technologies, new forms of art, new ways of living. But the sickness makes us ... ordinary. Uncreative. Unable to imagine anything new. Sarah studied the scan, but you're still inventing things. These medical supports, this technology, only because we fight it every day, the Queen said. And only because we know what we're fighting. Most of my people don't even realize they're sick yet, just think they're having trouble concentrating. Or that their ideas aren't as good as they used to be. The star map zoomed out to show the entire galaxy. The red lights seemed to be moving, spreading like drops of ink in water. How long before it reaches Earth? Sarah asked. Our calculations show 18 months, Kethfer replied. Maybe less. Sarah felt her heart sink. Have you found any cure? Any treatment? The Queen and Kethfer exchanged glances. We have. Tried everything, Kethfer said. Medicine, technology, energy treatments. Nothing works. The sickness isn't really physical. It's something deeper. But there is one strange thing, the Queen added. When we sent messages to Earth asking for help, something unexpected happened. Sarah looked at her questioningly. We received responses from human scientists who had read our research data, the Queen continued. Their messages were ... different, full of ideas we hadn't thought of, creative solutions, new ways of looking at the problem. Kethfer nodded. It was as if the information about the void sickness made them more creative, not less. This should be impossible, Sarah thought about her own reaction to learning about the crisis. Instead of feeling hopeless, she felt curious, eager to understand and help. Maybe that's what the prophecy means, she said slowly. What do you mean? The Queen asked. Humans have survived so many disasters on Earth, Sarah explained. Ice ages, plagues, wars, natural catastrophes. Maybe we've developed some kind of immunity to despair. The Queen's eyes grew brighter. Tell me more about human history, about how your people survived difficult times. Sarah began to pace around the room, her mind working quickly. When things go wrong on Earth, humans don't usually give up. We get angry or sad or scared, but then we start looking for solutions. We tell stories to make sense of bad things. We help each other. We find reasons to keep going. Even when there seems to be no hope? Kethfer asked. Especially then, Sarah said. Some of humanity's greatest achievements came during our darkest times. Art created during wars. Scientific discoveries made during plagues. New technologies invented after disasters. The Queen walked to a window that looked out over her crystal city. Sarah could see Zephyrian citizens moving slowly through the streets below, their movements lacking the grace and energy she had noticed when she first arrived. The void sickness feeds on despair, the Queen said. It grows stronger when people lose hope. But if humans naturally fight despair, then maybe we can teach others how to fight it too, Sarah finished. Kethfer was already working at his control panel. We need to run tests, study human brain patterns, human responses to stress and crisis. But first, the Queen said, turning back to Sarah, we need to understand exactly how humans turn suffering into strength. Because if we can learn that secret, we might be able to save not just the galaxy, but ourselves. Sarah looked at the star map with its spreading red lights, then at the Queen who was fighting to save her people despite her own illness. She thought about her colleagues back on Earth and how they would react to this challenge. Where do we start? She asked. Sarah spent the next 2 weeks working closely with Kethfer and his team of Zephyrian scientists. They set up a special laboratory in the Crystal Palace, filled with both alien technology and simple human equipment that Sarah had requested from Earth. Show me again, Kethfer said, watching Sarah examine blood samples under a microscope. How do you look at problems? Sarah adjusted the microscope focus and smiled. Well, when I see something I don't understand, I start by asking questions. Lots of questions. She pointed to the alien bacteria on the slide. Like, why does this bacteria change color when it's stressed? What is it trying to accomplish? How can this help it survive? The Zephyrian scientist looked confused. But you already know it changes color when stressed. Why ask more questions? Because there might be more to learn, Sarah explained. Maybe. The color change isn't just about stress. Maybe it's communication or protection or something else entirely. Queen Valandra entered the laboratory, moving slowly with her mechanical supports. She had been spending more time here each day, fascinated by Sarah's work methods. Your Majesty, Sarah said, looking up from the microscope. I've been thinking about what you told me, about how the void sickness affects your people's ability to innovate. Yes, the Queen replied, sitting carefully on a crystal chair. I think the problem isn't that you can't innovate anymore, Sarah said. I think the sickness makes you afraid to try new things because you might fail. Kethfer frowned. But failure is unpleasant. Why would anyone want to risk it? Sarah stared at him in surprise, because failure is how you learn. On Earth we have a saying, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. She walked to a wall display and began drawing simple diagrams. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus back on Earth. He's an engineer who wanted to build better spacecraft engines. Sarah drew a series of small explosions. His first 50 designs blew up, completely destroyed. Most people would have given up. What did he do? Queen Valandra asked, leaning forward with interest. He studied each explosion, he learned. What went wrong? We got excited about each failure because it taught him something new. Sarah drew a successful rocket. His 51st design worked perfectly. Now it's used on ships across human space. The Zephyrians looked at each other. With confusion, "He got excited about failure?" Kethfer asked. "Yes, because failure meant he was getting closer to success." Sarah sat down across from them. Humans don't see failure as an ending. They see it as information. Over the following days, Sarah began running experiments with volunteer Zephyrian patients who were showing early signs of the void sickness. She didn't use any medicine or technology. Instead, she simply talked with them. "Tell me about a time when something went wrong in your life," Sarah said to her first patient, a young Zephyrian named Veltar, who had lost his ability to compose. "Music. Why would I want to remember bad times?" Veltar asked sadly. "Because I want to understand how you handled it," Sarah replied gently. "What did you do when things were difficult?" Slowly, reluctantly, Veltar told her about a time when he was young and had accidentally broken his father's prized crystal instrument. "I felt terrible. I thought my father would never forgive me." "What happened next?" Sarah asked. "My father sat with me and taught me how to repair crystal instruments. He said that learning to fix broken things was just as important as learning to create new things." Sarah smiled. "And did you learn?" "Yes, I became very good at repairs. I even developed new techniques that other musicians started using." Veltar paused, looking surprised. "I had forgotten about that." "The void sickness wants you to forget," Sarah explained. "It wants you to only remember the pain of breaking the instrument, not the growth that came from learning to fix it." They continued these sessions for several days. Sarah taught Veltar to look at his current situation, his lost ability to compose as a problem to solve rather than a defeat to accept. "What if," Sarah suggested, "instead of trying to compose the way you used to, you tried completely new approaches? What if losing your old ability is actually an opportunity to discover something better?" Something changed in Veltar's luminous eyes. For the first time in months, he looked curious instead of hopeless. The breakthrough came on the 10th day. Veltar rushed into the laboratory, excitement radiating from his blue-tinted skin. "Dr. Chen, I composed something new." He held up a small crystal device. "It's different from anything I've ever created before. I combined traditional Zephyrian music with sound patterns I learned while repairing instruments." He activated the device, and beautiful, strange music filled the laboratory. It was unlike anything Sarah had heard, both alien and familiar, complex and simple. "This is wonderful," Sarah exclaimed. But she noticed something else. The dark patterns in Veltar's medical scans had begun to fade. Word of Veltar's recovery spread quickly through the palace. Soon, Sarah had dozens of volunteers wanting to try her human therapy. "I still don't understand how it works," Kethfer admitted as they reviewed the medical data. "You're not giving them medicine. You're not using technology. You're just talking. I'm helping them change how they think about problems," Sarah explained. "Humans have learned to see challenges as puzzles to solve, not punishments to endure." Queen Valandra had been listening quietly. "Tell me about your own challenge, Dr. Chen. Your childhood illness?"
"Bacteria, miss."
Sarah thought for a moment. "When I was sick, I could have focused on being weak and scared. Instead, I started studying the bacteria that were making me ill. I got curious about how they survived in such harsh conditions." "And that curiosity led you to become a xenobiologist," the Queen observed. "Exactly. My illness didn't defeat me. It showed me my life's purpose." Sarah looked at the Queen's mechanical supports. "Your Majesty, what if we looked at your condition the same way?" The Queen's eyes widened. "What do you mean? What if the void sickness chose you first because you're strong enough to find a solution? What if your experience with fighting it every day has taught you things that no one else knows?" For the first time since Sarah had met her, Queen Valandra smiled with genuine hope. The Queen said slowly, "It's time for me to try your human approach." Sarah nodded, watching as more Zephyrian patients began to recover using simple human techniques of reframing problems as opportunities. But she knew this was just the beginning. The real test would be spreading this knowledge to other species, other worlds. The galaxy was waiting for humanity's most precious gift, the ability to transform despair into hope. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same crystal chamber where Queen Valandra had first knelt before her. But everything was different now. The Queen moved without her mechanical supports, walking with natural grace across the mirror black. Fleur, her luminous eyes sparkled with the same innovative spirit that had once made the Zephyrians great explorers of the galaxy. "The latest reports, Dr. Chen," the Queen said, handing Sarah a crystal tablet that displayed information from across the known galaxy. Sarah read the updates with growing amazement. The Mindari homeworld was reporting restored telepathic connections for the first time in 3 years. The Velthari had begun creating art again, producing works that combined their traditional beauty with bold new techniques. The Crixoni warriors had rediscovered their courage, but now they also showed wisdom they had never possessed before. "How many worlds now?" Sarah asked. 43 star systems have reported complete recovery. From the void sickness, Queen Valandra replied proudly, "And we have human teachers working in 12 more systems." Sarah smiled as she thought about her colleagues from Earth. When the first reports of the cure had reached home, dozens of human psychologists, teachers, and even ordinary people had volunteered to help. They called themselves resilience ambassadors. And they were spreading across the galaxy faster than the void sickness ever had. "The Galactic Council wants to meet with you again next week," the Queen continued. "They're calling it the most important session in galactic history." Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to a group of young Zephyrians working in the corner of the chamber. They were building something new, a device that combined crystal technology with concepts they had learned from human engineering. They laughed as they worked, excited by each small failure that taught them something new. "Your Majesty," Sarah said, "tell me about your own recovery. How did you apply the human approach to your condition?" Queen Valandra's expression grew thoughtful. "First, it was very difficult. For 3 years, I had seen my illness as a punishment, as evidence that I was weak and failing my people." She walked to the window that overlooked her crystal city. "But you taught me to ask different questions. Instead of 'Why is this happening to me?' I began asking, 'What can this teach me? How can this help me understand my people better?'" Sarah joined her at the window. Below, the city sparkled with new life. Flying vehicles moved in creative new patterns, and citizens gathered in groups to share ideas and work on projects together. "I realized," the Queen continued, "that experiencing the void sickness firsthand gave me something no other leader had. True understanding of what my people were going through. I couldn't help them heal until I learned to heal myself." "And now?" Sarah asked. "Now I understand that my illness wasn't a sign of weakness. It was preparation for leadership." The Queen smiled. "The mechanical supports I needed taught me about human-style problem solving. When my body couldn't do something the old way, I had to find new ways. That innovation saved not just me, but my entire civilization." A chime sounded through the chamber, and Kethver entered with exciting news written all over his face. "Your Majesty, Dr. Chen, we just received a message from the edge of the galaxy. A species called the Mordock has heard about our recovery and is requesting human teachers." Sarah felt a thrill of excitement. The Mordock. But they're one of the most isolated species in known space. They were completely untouched by the void sickness, Kethver explained. "But they want to learn human resilience techniques to make sure they stay strong if any other cosmic disasters threaten the galaxy." Queen Valandra laughed, a sound full of joy and hope. "The cure has become more than a cure. It's becoming a way of life." Over the following weeks, Sarah worked with the Queen and her team to establish the Terran Resilience Institute. The plan was ambitious: create a permanent network of human teachers who would travel throughout the galaxy, not just fighting the void sickness, but teaching all species how to transform challenges into opportunities. "We need teachers who understand different types of thinking," Sarah explained to a group of human volunteers who had just arrived from Earth. "Engineers who can teach problem solving. Artists who can show how to create beauty from pain. Scientists who can demonstrate how failure leads to discovery." Marcus, her engineer friend from Earth, raised his hand. "What about ordinary people?" "Not everyone is a scientist or artist." Sarah grinned. "Ordinary people might be the most important teachers. Of all, every human has survived difficulties, made mistakes, and found ways to keep going. That's exactly what the galaxy needs to learn." The first graduation ceremony for Resilience ambassadors was held in the Crystal Palace's Great Hall. As humans from all walks of life prepared to spread across the galaxy, there were doctors and teachers, farmers and mechanics, students and grandparents. Each one carried the same human gift, the ability to find hope in hopeless situations. Ambassador Martinez, who had become one of the most successful teachers, approached Sarah during the ceremony. "You know," he said when we first came here, "I thought our job was to establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges. And now?" Sarah asked. "Now I realize our real purpose was always bigger than that. We're not just another species in the galaxy. We're the species that teaches others how to survive and thrive." As the ceremony continued, Sarah received a message from Earth. The Galactic Council had officially recognized humanity as the galaxy's first psychological healing species. Earth was being invited to establish permanent embassies on hundreds of worlds, not for politics or trade, but for teaching resilience and hope. Queen Valandra found Sarah standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the stars. "Regrets?" the Queen asked softly. "No," Sarah replied. "I was just thinking about that day when you knelt before me. I was so confused, so convinced that there had been some mistake. And now?" Sarah turned to face the Queen, her eyes shining with purpose. "Now I understand that the prophecy wasn't really about me personally, it was about all of humanity. We've spent thousands of years learning how to survive disasters, and now we get to teach that knowledge to the entire galaxy." The Queen nodded. The prophecy spoke of a people who would heal not just bodies, but souls. I think the seer would be proud to see how true her vision became. As they stood together, looking at the stars, Sarah thought about all the worlds where human teachers were working. All the civilizations learning to transform their suffering into strength. All the species discovering that failure could be the beginning of growth rather than the end of hope. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or traitors, but as healers of the spirit and teachers of resilience. And that, Sarah realized, was a purpose worth any amount of suffering they had endured to learn it.